educated through my career. You go to school in a certain area, you come out of school, you get a job, and then in that job, you get on-the-job training to get better at that job, and you progress up in your career. Again, the standard way in the past of how we've done education. If you look on the right-hand side, that is more indicative of what's going on today in the digital world. You come out of school and you could possibly go find a job in the area that you focus on, but in digital, that doesn't have to be the case. You can actually go and do something adjacent to your degree in the digital world. And as you progress through your job and your career, many times in a digital space, you jump from one opportunity to the other where it's a different type of skill set. So the training that needs to be or needs to occur in this digital world is not linear, but is actually really, really adaptive to today's world, where you can change functions, you can change jobs, you can actually change industries, where we need to make sure that when we do this type of digital transformation, we adapt our education, our training, so that people that can come in from different industries and different skill sets can pick up the right skill sets to do a good job in the digital space that we're doing in our organization. So around intelligence and skills, again, human capital. Previously, it was okay for people to come in from 9 to 5 and do the same thing over and over because that was their job, and really have what we call this fixed mindset, where you really aren't challenged that often in your job because you're doing the same thing over and over, and you're really not asked to challenge the status quo. Whereas we know that in the digital transformation world, every day now, due to technology, your job, your industry, your company is there's an opportunity for it to be disrupted. So that's why we need to help our employees have what we call a growth mindset. And this mindset helps them embrace for all the challenges associated with all this disruption that's coming in through digital transformation. Also help them understand that it's okay to not know something, but to have a mindset where you know you can go learn it. That's the skill set and the mindset that we want to have in our employees. So again, going from this fixed mindset to the growth mindset when it comes to our employees' intelligence and skills. And around health, and this is very important and something that we do not do a good job of when it comes around digital transformation. So just imagine what we're doing today. We're bringing in technology around automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, and in the mind of our employees, their mental mind is thinking, how is this new technology going to take my job? And there are situations where, yes, this new digital technology is going to replace them, or it's actually going to make their job easier and better. So we need to get ahead of the curve and actually address this mental health that our employees have associated with these new technologies. Whereas, if it is going to affect their job, explain to them how it's going to affect their job. And if it is going to replace them, then talk about how we're going to reskill them, upskill them in other opportunities in the job. Again, to make sure that our employees have this right mental mindset when it comes to our digital transformation. Also associated with health is the emotion side of things. Emotional intelligence is very important now when it comes to for corporations to be successful. Same thing for our employees. We need to work with them around their emotions. And as I mentioned before, if we're automating a factory, guarantee you 99% of the time the factory's employees are going to have an emotional response of fear, of scared around this technology, because again, they're afraid they're going to lose their jobs. This is where we need to address this head on and talk about how this new technology of automation and robotics is going to make the company better, and how they are going to be involved in this process to incorporate this new type of technology to make the company better. And I'll talk about some examples of how to do that. So the thing that I want to talk about is, why aren't companies focusing on this human capital that I talked about? And that's because if you really talk to people around digital transformation, they're always talking about the technology, because that's the exciting part of it, right? Hey, we're going to use artificial intelligence to do this and that. We're going to use blockchain to disrupt the bank industry. We're going to use, drone technology to enable this type of new business models and so forth. That's exciting. But when you start talking about, hey, we need to start thinking about our employees and around their training, their education, their mindsets, and their mental and emotional health, Unfortunately, that's not the exciting part when it comes to digital transformation. And also, it's very hard to measure, the human capital improvements that we need to do. So there's a lot of learnings that we're going through as an industry around digital transformation to figure out how we can make it more exciting to talk about human capital, and most importantly, how to measure the success. So the other thing I want to talk about is relating to the mindset around our employees, right? The fact that our mind is a billion-year-old organ, that its number one role is to make sure that that it protects us. And anything that challenges the status quo is considered a threat. So anytime we do digital transformation, it requires changing something. That in the mind is associated with changing a status quo. And in our mind, it automatically identifies that change of status quo or our digital transformation as something that it doesn't want to do. So that's why it's very important for us, in order for us to get our employees bought in on digital transformation and wanting to do it, that we need to address this mindset where the brain is not going to automatically want to accept it. And there's some things I'll talk about in the upcoming slides where we can help our employees change that mindset. So let's actually talk about some examples around how I've been able to focus on human capital to drive digital transformation success. The use case is we have factories, and pretty much everyone out there that's making something has factories. And in this use case, I want to use big data, which is all this digital data that we're getting from IoT sensors on our machines, augment that with artificial intelligence, so that we can improve the way our machines operate and actually improve the way our maintenance engineers, in this case, I had about 100 maintenance engineers that will be affected by this digital transformation I'm working on. So a combination of big data plus AI to help improve the work that the maintenance engineers are doing. So the first thing that we did was we wanted to make sure that we involved the maintenance engineers. So we engaged them and say, hey, what are some of the biggest headaches or machines that you have? And they identified the top biggest machine headaches they had, the machines that kept on breaking and they had no idea why. And that was good because, again, we brought them along into scoping out exactly what we wanted to do around this AI plus big data digital transformation. Then we identified the maintenance engineers that were responsible for those machines, and we made sure they got training from day one and throughout the entire project on exactly what is big data, what is artificial intelligence, and how their skill sets combined with big data and AI will make predictive maintenance of the machines better. And then from an intelligence and skill sets, again, this is the growth mindset, we started bringing in the concept of this thing called MVP, which is minimum viable products, where we experimented and tried things that we know from the very beginning it won't be 100%. And we're going to have some failures. But we taught them that it's okay. We need to have these failures and these learnings in order to make our digital transformation, AI plus big data, successful. So we taught them that it's okay to have a mindset of growth where you don't have to be perfect all the time. And around the emotional and mental mindset, what we did is we made sure that the employees or the maintenance engineers realized that they were critical for this. They weren't going to be replaced by AI or big data, but most importantly, they were critical for the success associated with this digital transformation. So a little bit more detail around how we did these types of areas of focus around human capital. So the first thing we did was we said, you know what? Let's take all the data that we have in our machines, that these 3 machines that keep on breaking, we're just going to run them through the AI engine without involving our maintenance engineers at all. And what came out of it was some recommendations on how to prevent certain failures around those machines. And those recommendations were all incorrect. I think, I think it was like 0.01 of them, I think was something that when we had our maintenance engineers look at it, said, yeah, that made sense. The other 99% was just, recommendations that didn't make any sense. So when we did that, we just wanted to highlight to our maintenance engineers that if we did this without them, this would fail. So again, just a way to show them that they were important in the process, their mental, emotional health that we wanted to address. Then what we did is we took the data with the artificial intelligence and we involved the maintenance engineers on doing our prototyping, right? Developing the algorithms that are needed to predict when these machines could possibly fail using AI, and then making sure that they don't fail. And when we did this, we were able to developed recommendations that were about 30% accurate, which was pretty good compared to previously. We had no idea how to prevent these machines from failing. So again, involving the maintenance engineers through the process, having them understand that we're going through a learning process of failures and learning from the failures, really helped them understand why we're doing this and got them engaged and actually helping out during this digital transformation. And then lastly, we wanted to highlight to them again that these predictions are just pieces of insights, that they are the ones that make the final decisions, right? The artificial intelligence and big data will say, hey, we recommend you do maintenance on this piece of this machine right now, because there's a high probability, 80% probability that's going to fail in the next 2 months. The maintenance engineers need to look at that and from their gut feel, from their experience, and from their intelligence, determine if that's the right thing to do or not. Again, making sure that they understand that they are critical to this digital transformation using AI to do predictive maintenance. And when they were involved in that decision, we were able to increase the availability of those 3 machines from failing. Again, increase the uptime associated with those 3 machines, which is very beneficial for the organization. So just to recap, I provided a definition of exactly what is human capital, and human capital is the value that we put around our employees' intelligence, their skills, their education, their training, and then let's not forget their mental and emotional health. And then discussed, why don't companies focus on this? And it's because it's not the exciting piece of digital transformation, and it's very hard to measure. And then walk you through some examples of how I focus on human capital to be successful in a digital transformation initiative that I led. So with that said, I want to thank you for your time, and just also want to highlight that I have other examples of how we've used technology and human capital and so forth around driving digital transformation on my website, howdin.me. And I love connecting with people, so I'm on LinkedIn. Please connect with me, and I look forward to answering questions and also having some discussions with the group here.
Terrific, Hal, and this gives us an opportunity for the audience to ask you all sorts of questions related to this topic, which is a very important topic. We talk about, of course, digital transformation, and the subject of technology is always so present. And one comment from William Fuller here that I'll share with you is that mental and emotional health really are the basis of employee engagement and contribution to innovation. And these topics are far more important than which technology is specifically selected. And many comments like this. But the practice is hard because we have consulting companies and technology companies going directly to the C-suite and selling to them that if they implement these technologies, they're going to have this ROI, this value creation. And in those discussions, they don't talk about people very much. How can you compete with that, in an organization? You are now, leading the digital transformation in an organization, and I'm sure you suffer those pressures as well for cost reductions, for revenue increases, and people become a bit of a byproduct of that process. How do we get the C-suite attention on this topic?
Yeah, so very good question. So right now, you can actually go on the internet and look at digital transformation frameworks, best practices, and there's studies by around the top consulting companies out there that tell you that they've done research now for the past 10 to 15 years. And to your point, it's not about the technology, it's about the people. So with that said, what I've been able to do is take that information and show it to our executives, say, hey, we talk about technology, and don't get me wrong, we have to talk about technology, but it's shown here that 80% of digital transformation projects fail, not because of the technology, it's because we don't focus on the people. So now that we have that credibility or information, we can start bringing that up to the senior leader to say, yeah, we need to carve out time to talk about the human capital. So I've been able successfully to do that because, again, as you mentioned, these consulting companies go in and they sell, but they're also the ones saying right now, we've learned from what we've sold in the past, which is technology. Now we're saying technology plus human capital, which, from a consulting perspective, brings in additional revenue around change management. So I don't think they're going to say no to the fact that we've highlighted some gaps in their previous discussions around how to deploy digital transformation.
Very well, very well. You know, this is not a new phenomenon when it comes to organizational improvement and innovation. You know, we can go back a few decades when lean was becoming more and more prevalent. Over a period of time, you know, people start misapplying lean, and the abbreviation and the acronym became for lean was that less employees are needed, and that's what lean stood for. And then as we all know, if you create that fear and that culture of fear, there goes, you know, your ability to think innovatively and take different perspectives on things, because you're in a defensive mode. And as you said, the neuroscience of our brain will tell us that the amygdala will take over, and now we are completely, you know, focused and narrow on defending ourselves versus this external threat. So I think that in organizations and leadership teams that understand that dynamic, it becomes a key component of implementing new technologies or any new programs that may be perceived as a threat to employees. That we remove that threat. That if we, as a matter of fact, some of the organizations I work with, when I go in to accelerate innovation, I have a discussion with the leadership team, and I say that if our improvements and innovations translate into a large reduction in workforce, which honestly, I have done lean improvements that eliminated 200 positions right off the bat, but we didn't let anybody go, because we know that would be the death wish if we did that on innovation in that organization. But my goodness, how it's really hard to do when you have 200 people now that no longer have using that function, and you have to retrain and reskill them to do other things. And your CFO is hitting you, is like, you know, why we have 200 people on the bench? The next day they become people on the bench. How do you deal with that? How in your real applications in manufacturing, I mean, where every dollar counts, how do you withstand that pressure?
That's a great question, and not only myself, but other peers in my in the space that I'm working in are encountering the same issue. So here's what we're seeing. Let's take the example of a smart factory. You're going to a factory and you're automating it, you're putting in software, and to your point, we're reducing the need for humans, okay? Which is true. So there's a percentage of them that won't be needed when you do this type of smart factory automation and software and so forth. But what also you need to understand is the people that you do need have to have a different skill set, because now you're not asking someone to go, quote unquote, turn the wrench, right? Go actually make a product. You're asking them to actually work next to a robot, collaborate with that robot, or actually integrate with some touch screens to integrate with some software. So what we've learned is the current employees that will be affected, there's going to be a percentage of them where we have to upskill and reskill them, because they don't have the digital mindset to go interact with the automation and software that we're putting in. Okay, so those people, as we're going through the digital transformation, we're upskilling them and reskilling them so that they have these new digital jobs in the smart factory. And there's going to be a percentage of the employees that aren't going to be needed in the plants. But we also realize that there are other jobs in the organization that, again, upskilling and reskilling, that they will be good for after they go through the training. So we work with HR to say there's a large gap around purchasing, right? That people that might not have the purchasing or this experience, but we know they're great employees. They come in to work on time. They have great knowledge in the products we sell. But we put them through some what we call academic programs to get them to be able to start interviewing for these skills that we need. And then there's another category out there that I tell you that both Starbucks and McDonald's are doing really well, which is called outskilling, where they know that because of digitalization, there's going to be a set of employees that internally they just won't need anymore. So what they've done is they've gone out to the community and said, hey, community, we got some great employees. What type of jobs are needed in the community? And then they make the investment to work with the companies that need those people to actually upskill them and reskill them for those jobs. So there is opportunities out there. I mean, right now in the U.S., there is millions of unfilled jobs, and that's because people aren't skilled. So what we need to do as an organization, as we do digital transformation and displacing people in current jobs, is to help them figure out where do they fit next, and then apply those upskills and reskilling opportunities so that they can prosper both within the organization or within the community. Because if you don't make the community better, then your organization is not going to prosper in that community, because people are going to say, wow, the company comes in and all they do is just use us use us, and then when the robots come in, they discard us, right? But it's a better story to say, hey, we've automated to make our company more efficient. We've upskilled our employees to be in the digital world. And by the way, for the people that didn't want to stay on for whatever reason, we've made sure that we've involved the community to make sure that they find jobs within the community, which is a great story.
That is terrific, and it does require organizations to have an understanding, a deep understanding of these pain points that you identified, and have a vision that's aligned with this. Which honestly, on top of all the disruptions that are happening in the world and the global pandemic, on top of that, I think a lot of organizations have been caught, unprepared on this. And I would say that the leadership teams that have thought about this and said, we have a long-term vision, and we're going to upskill and reskill our people to do that. I'm not sure how much bandwidth is being dispensed on that right now, and I'm personally a little concerned from what I see across industries. But the case that you just mentioned is certainly a model for what should be done. Karen Zanetti, specifically in the biopharmaceuticals industry, it has a question, and I know you don't come specifically from biopharmaceuticals, but if you look at R&D heavy environments, and her question is, do you see any particular challenges regarding training? And she talks about biopharmaceuticals, but I'm thinking also in terms of R&D heavy environments, and where these digital technologies are coming in and creating a level of disruption. Are there any particularly challenges for the more technical environments you feel?
Yeah, actually, I do work closely in this company I work for, and then also previously around with R&D. And yes, there are challenges, because what I've experienced is, a company, when they have a strong R&D department, that's the future of the company, and their R&D department are considered the again, the future, so they are in high regard. But one thing I've learned is sometimes when you're so siloed in the thing that you do, you lose sight of how digital can make your life better and how digital can disrupt what you're doing. So yes, these employees are critical for the success of a company, but also they need to start opening up their eyes that, hey, everyone is going to be affected by digital. So if you think that whatever you're doing in an organization around R&D is not going to be affected, you're wrong. So it's up to the digital transformation leader to incorporate themselves in R&D and help them understand how they're going to be affected by digital, which is, again, since they are considered the future, it's very difficult because they are highly regarded, but it's our job to go get them involved in this digital transformation. And then most importantly, identify how their skill set can be leveraged for digital. Prime example is we wanted to one of the companies I work for, we wanted to break into this area around predictive in our industry, and we found out that our R&D people have the knowledge that artificial intelligence needed to replicate. So what we were able to do is take their knowledge and develop software that was used to incorporate into artificial intelligence for that industry. So again, an opportunity to understand how they can be involved, the R&D team, their expertise in the digital world. And it could be that you can take their knowledge and develop some software to augment or actually enhance some AI to make their expertise more powerful when it comes to software. So there's plenty of opportunities, I think, around R&D that I've experienced on, but it's trying to get them bought in on it has always been the hardest part.
Very good. Great insights, Hal. Thanks for that. Stephen Parker, who comes from the UK, is shifting the conversation to a different perspective now. And the way that he's posing this question is now that, okay, the human side is important for this, and we need to take the human side into account. But the human side also, he's looking at it as a potential obstacle for us to get digital transformation really well done. And you discussed this in your presentation. But he says that, you know, we talked already about how this C-suite commitment is critical for good digital transformation to take place. But he also, in his experiences, sees quite often that a supposedly low-level person in the organization can really have the kill the project type of influence, and this really can, you know, make it difficult to implement digital transformation. So curious about if that experience, you know, is supported by your own experience, that a low-level individual can have a big influence on these projects as well, and maybe what are some of the things that we can get some of these low-level people in the organization from a hierarchical standpoint, but they have very high influential power, and how do you get those on board?
Spot on. All it takes is one apple to be rotten to really spoil the entire batch, right? And I've experienced that numerous times, and sometimes you just, there's no solution, right? Because like you said, they've got a lot of influence. But the things I've used in the past that have helped out is, you know, a couple things. One is when the leaders start acting in this new digital way, the person who has influence starts losing some of their power, right? So if you want to drive a new way of thinking into purchasing, then what you'll have is our VP of purchasing talks about digital every time he interacts with, you know, in town hall meetings or meetings with the team. They talk about digital and the digital transformation that we want to do. So now you're shifting the power from the like you mentioned, the low-level influencer to, hey, if our VP's always talking about it, then we got to get on board. And the person that, or the low levels that aren't getting on board, they're going to lose less and less power. The other thing that I've looked at that has worked is job description. So usually, you know, if you incorporate into job descriptions the digital transformation components and skills that are needed, and then you tell the team, hey, the company is changing, and it's because digital is the new way of working, and every job is going to have some type of digital component to it. And here, your previous job description was this. Your new job description for anyone in this new role is this, and it's going to have some digital components to it. And we're going to provide digital training for everyone so that everyone can participate and benefit from this digital transformation we're doing. What's going to happen from my experience is there's going to be some people that are like, I'm not going to do it, okay? Which is fine. Now you have a mechanism, a forcing mechanism, say, hey, your job description requires you to do this. If you don't do it, then, you know, we have to have a conversation with HR because this is the way the company is going. So and again, what's also going to happen is people that do follow the process and start learning these new digital skills, there's going to be opportunities for them to progress into and be promoted to different roles. So again, what you're doing is you're showing the person that's not bought in and is being a bit of a pain that if they keep this up, then they're going to have some issues with their current job. And then most importantly, they're going to see people getting promoted to jobs that, since they're not following the transition of upskilling, they're not going to have those opportunities. So I've seen that work where you finally get people to say, okay, I got to drink the Kool-Aid. But again, the last option is, unfortunately, there's just going to be people out there that aren't going to do it for whatever reason. And that's where you've got to nip this in the bud and work with HR to say, we're going in this direction. There are some people that aren't doing this, and you have to work with HR to figure out what to do.
Yeah, those are terrific insights, Hal. Thank you so much for that. I said that Stephen Parker was from the UK, and he is, but he's now coming in at this conference from Sydney, Australia. So hi, Stephen. Thank you there for the question. And Karen, thank you for the comment as well. As I keep looking at the many questions that are coming in, and these are great questions. Some of them are very expensive questions in the sense that they have, you are covering issues that are work-related issues, human issues, and these are also community social issues that translated. And many in the audience have shown appreciation for the fact that you have looked at the ecosystem more broadly than just the job that people are doing at work. It's, you know, their function in society as well is impacted by that. And I think this is a discussion that where we think about stakeholders in organizations, and the community is very much a very important stakeholder in that discussion. Now, curious about you know, a more recent events talking about mental health. You see the Olympics are happening right now. We have incredible athletes that are you know, like Michael Phelps, who, you know, broke all sorts of records in swimming, and then he's suffering from mental health issues, openly discussing those. Simone Biles right now, you know, is not competing in the Olympics because, you know, the pressure is just too much. And I would say that in organizations, people and often high performers are feeling that pressure as well. And you talked a little bit about this mental health component. What's going on here? What is your assessment from organizations in terms of this pressures that people are finding in all sorts of different areas of performing at very high levels, and some of them are really burning out or suffering from mental health issues? What is your thought on that? What role organizations play in the discussion with their employees?
And that's a very good topic to discuss now, because not, you know, for sure the examples you gave around the Olympics is spot on, but also because of COVID-19. We've seen in North America an uptick on mental health concerns with our employees, and just overall concerns around society, because, you know, we spent the past year and so many months not engaging socially, doing everything through video conferencing, and losing touch with you know, our fellow employees and peers and so forth. So mental health is becoming a spotlight, especially in the organizations that I worked in, and that's a good thing. And you know, I honestly think digitalization is actually causing probably some of the mental problems, because you know, we've seen, or I've seen, and my peers have seen, that because of COVID-19, we have shown that digitalization and automation and digital transformation can be done quickly, and there is an ROI associated with this. So what's happening now is companies across the world are doubling down and tripling down on accelerating their digital transformation efforts. And I would imagine the employees now, as I mentioned in my presentation, their mental and emotional response to this is not positive, because it's you know, it is affecting them. So I think we in the digital transformation world are probably adding on to the concerns around our employees' mental health, and we need to address this upfront. As I mentioned, bring our employees along during the ride early on to show them that they are critical for our success when it comes to digital transformation. And if there are situations where we will be affecting their jobs, we've got to address that head on, and start talking about upskilling, reskilling, and possibly outskilling. And I think by doing that, we can at least do our part when it comes to digital transformation, to not add to the concerns around mental health.
Yeah, this is a very important topic you raised there, and it's a real concern with organizations and society. And some will claim that, you know, we have not evolved enough as human beings. We're not really that digital. We're very much analog, right? We talk about the importance of engaging. I often call it the triple H for effective change, which is you have to engage the head, you have to engage the hands, and you have to engage the hearts. And if one of those is missing, we usually have gaps in our implementation of meaningful change. And our hands have been kind of removed from things, from a lot of the digital technologies. Also, COVID has removed a lot of the hands and the analog portion of how we are. So that's a real issue, and that undermines trust in organizations as well. There is this fear that's going on there, and then this inability to have that personal touch and contact with people. So I think there is a higher level of fear and anxiety across all industries that we have been experienced. And we know that the antidote to fear is trust. So it's a long intro to the question, which is, how are we building greater trust in organizations, among the employees, among the professionals and leaders in the organization? How do we build environments where there is trust? Do you have any suggestions or tips on how do we build these trust environments that we can then move towards a common purpose and diminish the fear that so often exists?
Yeah, again, if you go online and do research around, what are some best practices associated with digital transformation, and one of the areas is around transparency, and we've used that, to help out with the trust factor. And every project that we work on, we make sure we over communicate. We advise people on why we're doing this digital transformation, how it's going to affect them, how they're going to be involved in ensuring the success of it, and then how the organization is going to benefit from this digital transformation. And we do, I interact a lot with our communication teams to make sure that we communicate often and in a way that is not overwhelming. And then most importantly, in the right channel. It goes back to the biases that I have around being a digital person. I assume everyone wants to hear something via email or wants to see a video, or we have our internal social media accounts and want to hear it there. But there's a percentage of our employees that still like paper. They still like hearing it from a person's one-to-one interaction, or at least a town hall. So around awareness, to build that trust, make sure when you provide that information, it's more than just an email. Make sure you distribute it down to the manager so that during their weekly status meeting, they talk about, again, why we're doing a digital transformation, what we're doing, and how it affects the employees. And then unfortunately, I want to be paperless, but in this case, we found out that there's certain people that still want to read stuff on a sheet of paper. So in our facilities, we have printouts of, again, what, why, how associated with digital transformation that are posted everywhere, so that people that don't feel comfortable getting that information digitally can still be involved in the conversation. So again, from what I've experienced, to get that trust factor up, just over communicate, and then most importantly, do surveys, and just be cognizant of when you get those survey results back. It's not going to be rosy all the time, and you need to have the commitment to go and address anything that comes back as a concern. And from our perspective, it's a lot of work, but it really helps out to make our digital transformation successful.
Hal, thank you so much for bringing this human capital focus to our attention and this digital transformation conference. I mean, here, if I talk momentarily about the US perspective, I mean, we're having what's called the Great Resignation as one phenomenon that's happening right now, where people with surrounded with so much death, they are actually taking stock of their life, and they see very clearly the end point, and they work it backwards, and people are quitting their jobs because, this is not what I should be doing with my life. I have limited time. And you can see that as a position of privilege, but the reality, it's a choice to be made, and a lot of people are making those choices. So this discussion of human capital on digital transformation is so critical from a mental health perspective, from a social perspective, from a business perspective. So thank you for bringing your insights and expertise to our global audience today. We very much appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much for having me, and I love the conversation. I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hal Dinh, Digital Transformation Director at Electrolux and a thought leader on the topic. What a pleasure to have him with us. Thank you, Hal, again. We're going to move on to the next session. And in the next session, I am really looking forward to bringing Aruj Haider, who who is the Chief Digital and Innovation Officer at the City of Westminster, and she is going to talk about how her leadership and organization are looking at future-proofing workplaces and global strategies to drive a hybrid workforce through human-centered and experience-led approaches that's customized to meet both business and stakeholders' needs, including community, which is a topic that we already started talking about here, and we're going to go further on with Aruj. So we're going to be taking a break now. I see all of you back at the top of the hour.